Okay, today I want to welcome you guys to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is Craig Domann, your host. And today on our show, I have a former client, good friend, a mover and shaker in Nebraska world, Steve Warren. Steve, welcome to Pro Mindset today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All
Appreciate it.
right. All right, Steve, I used to call you Woo Woo. Why did I used to
Right,
call you Woo Woo?
right. Woo woo. That's the nickname. I can't get rid of that thing. Everybody still calls me woo woo around here too.
That's crazy. Well, share with everybody that is listening. What are you doing now? You've been doing
so
it for a minute.
we started the nonprofit 18 years ago now, called
Oh,
Dream.
God.
It's
Holy
been 18
smokes.
years, right? Isn't that crazy? So 18
Wow.
years ago, we started the nonprofit Dream, which does after school programs, mentoring, and then our athletic side, Warren Academy. So we're in the schools, giving kids opportunities to, learn different things about themselves and character development. And then the sports side of the sports training side of things. So about 600 kids every day is in the schools, and then another 100, 200 that come through in the evenings and the afternoons at the sports academy. So we're rocking and rolling, just helping kids get opportunities and helping them through life.
What's the biggest impact you've seen over almost 2 decades now of being embodied in a community where, a lot of parents aren't around or they're too busy working to really have anything functional or productive for their kids? What are you seeing as, like, if I said, okay, one thing is the only impact you get to make, what is it?
I think for me, it's probably the sports side of things. What we've seen the biggest impact on, just because there's been so many kids now that have gone on to get scholarships, that have gone on to become coaches or become mentors, on that sports side of things. I think that's been probably our biggest impact. On the school side of things, we start with kids like in kindergarten, so it happens so much longer, right? The process takes so longer to see. But it's been good on that side too, because now we have kids. We've been doing it long enough that we've had kids that started in our programs that are now coming back to work with us and work for
Mm,
us and work in the
that's awesome.
schools. So it's become full circle. So, even though it's been a long range things, those things of having kids that maybe would not have either gotten a scholarship or gotten an opportunity, and that happens, and then having kids that needed somebody to pull them out of the situation they were in and see something in them to where they're even going to college and coming back and being educators and mentors. So it's been a fun ride.
Well, something that happened to you're by way of Springfield, Missouri,
Yes, sir. The Show Me State.
Kickapoo or something like that.
Kickapoo,
What
right? Kickapoo High.
Kickapoo High School.
Yep.
So when Tom Osborne and company came down to recruit you and gave you an opportunity to come to Nebraska and you experienced the success that they had back in the 90s, late 90s, that changed your life, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like it was, um, not a lot of guys were coming out of Springfield, Missouri at the time, right? So, there'd been some success. Our high school team was really good, so we did have a handful of guys that went on to play college football, and we had 3 or 4 Division One guys too on that team. But Coach Osborne coming in and offering me and me getting an opportunity to come here and play at Nebraska at the time when Nebraska was, the top dog, back to back national champions, and coming in and playing for that team and that organization, and just learning a lot about life and getting around a bunch of winners and people who were competing at everything in life changed my life drastically.
Well, what's really cool is that the seed that Coach Osborne planted in you, and you were a third rounder, you got an opportunity to go to the NFL. You had a crazy quadriceps tendon tear. I
Right,
remember I was at that game in
right,
Chicago.
yeah.
I mean, that was a game changer for your career right
Oh,
there,
absolutely. It
right?
was, yeah. That was definitely. I always like to call it the pivot moment, right? Like where life changed and you're on a trajectory where you think you're going to play 8, 9, 10 years in the NFL, and then all of a sudden it's like, can I make it another 2 or 3? Right. So can I make it another 2 or 3? But I also say that was a moment that helped me, get to where I am now. Without that, without that adversity or without that struggle, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. So, even though it didn't go professionally in football the way I wanted it to go professionally in life, it kind of pushed me towards something that, is probably, having a greater impact, right, on me and other people.
No doubt about it. Well, a couple things that come to my mind. One is that very few guys are like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning when they know
Right.
when their last game is, and they know that when they get to decide when their career's over.
Right.
99%, their last game was already happened, and they didn't know it was their last
Yeah.
game when it was their last game.
Yeah.
Because if it was their last game, they'd had the mama bear, they'd had their kids or their
Yeah.
parents down on the field taking photos and doing, pics for social media. The NFL is a tough business. I mean, it
Yeah. Not
doesn't
for
tell
long.
you. It's not for long. I
Not for
mean,
long.
it's it's tough. The other thing that's interesting and that you've done, in addition to making a huge impact on the Omaha community, is you've put together a band of people like Tony Veland and people like that
Right.
that are former Huskers that are also doing the same thing because you
Right.
wrap them into your 7-on-7 programs and your training and all that stuff. So, why don't you speak about that for a second?
That's how I extended my playing career. I always think is I took the locker room atmosphere and brought it into Warren Academy and brought it into Dream and brought all these guys that were former players and some current players at the time, and got them involved in what we were doing in the community and coaching and training and mentoring also, and getting them back involved. And that kind of gave us that locker room feeling that a lot of guys, that's what they miss the most, right? It's not the games, it's the locker room side of it. It's the atmosphere you get and the relationships you build with the guys you're playing with. So it was good for all of us. And we've been able to keep that going now for so long. And all those guys, Veland and John Taglin and David Horn and Niles Paul is now back helping us. DeMornay Pearsonell, those guys that played in the NFL, Jamel Williams, guys that played in the NFL, played at Nebraska. Some guys that didn't play at Nebraska are now back helping us. But it's still the same thing for all of us. We love being around each other. We love being around the game, and we get that locker room feel still. So it keeps us.
Okay, Steve. One of the things that you've got a son that's a quarterback,
Yeah.
and he's probably finished or just finished his freshman year in high school.
He's got a state game Tuesday. They've got one game left.
Oh, does he really? That's awesome.
Yeah, they're playing for state title Tuesday.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That's going to be a great experience.
Right.
Okay, so I talked about the idea that there's always a gap, and the gap is between what your parents and your coaches tell you and reality.
Mm.
And think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Coach Osborne had his culture, he had his motto, he had his principles. Every coach does.
Right.
But there's still holes in that approach. And even your parents that love you the most say, hey, Steve, you got to work hard, you got to be on time, you got to do all these things. It takes more than that.
Right.
So my question to you is, how are you mentoring your son through this process so that he's ready for those blindside shots that are coming? He's ready for the adversity that people don't prepare you for.
Right.
Because you faced it. It was
right.
I think it was year 3 in the league.
Oh,
you
year
faced
one.
It.
Year one.
That was year 1?
Oh
my God. Oh my God. You got smacked. You got smacked in the face from the jump.
From the beginning. Yep, year 1. Yeah. So I mean, the interesting thing is what we just talked about was I'm lucky and my son is lucky because he has not only me to talk to about it, that he has a number of guys that have seen it all. The guys that, like me, that got hurt year 1, guys that didn't make it to the league that thought they were going to play in the league, guys that made it to the league and played a long time in the league, guys that started on their college teams, guys that didn't start or they did start and lost their jobs. So in our staff, there's so many guys with different experiences, and we're all honest about our experiences with the kids, because if we're not honest with them, we can't help them. We can't guide them in a way that they might need to hear it. And so for me, I'm lucky because I get to put him with people who can talk to him. And let's be honest, like our kids stopped listening to us after a while anyway. So putting him around guys that I know he'll listen to has been a benefit for me because I don't have to say it all the time. Um, Even though I do wake up in the morning and I'm on his head like constantly about things he needs to do, and I'm still doing my job at home. But I know when it comes from his quarterback coach or when it comes from somebody he looks up to, it hits a little different, and he listens a little bit more than he might listen to me, but it reiterates the same message. And if we're all speaking that same common language, it helps. And so he's been lucky that he's been around a lot of guys that um, have a different number of experiences, and he's seen a lot because of who we are, and he's been a lot of places. So I'm fortunate that I've been able to put my son in that environment.
No doubt about it. No doubt. JT's awesome. You got some great people working with you. Here's something I'm just gonna throw at you that I kind of learned this last week by having on my podcast an MMA guy. And MMA guys are different now.
Yeah.
They have to be, I mean, that's like, football, you can like grab your hammy,
Yeah.
start waving at the sidelines like, coach, man, I'm down. Bring me,
Yeah.
I need a break. When you're in the cage, you can't get out.
It's just you.
It's you versus you, and you versus the opponent.
Right.
But one of the things he talked about, his name's Moon. It'll be a podcast that's dropped here pretty soon. He talked about the idea that he visualizes himself in every bad situation, every bad position. He studies his opponent and looks at what he does really well. What are his kill shots? What is his strategy to get guys on their back, on their side, whatever, get them against the fence, whatever it is. And from watching my son Brock's quarterback journey, I can tell you that there are some very common pitfalls or valleys that quarterbacks run themselves into. And a lot of it is unfairness.
Yeah.
A lot of it is you're getting recruited over through the portal.
Right.
Some of it's NIL. Hey, if they're giving this guy NIL money and they're not giving your kid NIL money, or he's getting more than your son, he's going to get the best opportunity.
Right.
So there's just certain things you can't, that's not something you typically talk about.
Right.
But it's unfair.
Yeah.
Brock was in one of those situations where he was hoping it'd be an open competition in the fall, but he kind of knew deep down it wasn't because the coaches brought in their own people. But the quarterback coach, OC, kept track of every throw they made, all camp, for accuracy, completion percentage, decision-making, pocket presence. Brock came out number one in all of them. And they didn't let the quarterbacks know, there's 8 scholarship quarterbacks, didn't let them know what their scores were until the end. But they had already made their decision that somebody else was going to be the star.
Yeah.
He was a portal kid they brought in that the coach had a previous relationship with. So in some respects, those statistics didn't matter.
Right.
In fact, so much so that the coach had to go back and count them up again because he was surprised that Brock actually won all those.
Yeah.
So when we talk about fairness, pro football is not fair.
No.
College football is not fair.
Mm-mm.
Honestly, high school football is not fair either.
No.
But how do you teach your son, or how do you teach your kids there at the academy to understand that it's not a level playing field all the time?
No. I mean, the one thing we try to do is, show them those instances of this is somebody that has done it right. And because you tell kids, right, if you do the right things, if you say the right things, if you work hard enough, if you do these things should happen for you from a successful standpoint. But you and I know that's not always true. There's guys that do the right thing every day. They show up, they work hard, they make plays in practice, and they still might not get an opportunity. So the hard part is when a kid is going through that, and we have it in high school football all the time. We have kids that should be playing more, should be getting more targets, should be on the field more, but for one reason or another, it's either a relationship that the coach has with another kid or another parent, and the other kids get more opportunities. We always just tell kids when that happens, when you get your opportunity, make sure you take advantage of it, because that way they can't always deny production. And when they do deny production, then the fake and the real shows up. And then that either is going to divide the team or bring a team together, depending on how the coach handles that. So it goes back to controlling what you can control, because you can't control what the coach is going to do. You can't control what other kids are going to do, or what parents are going to do. The only thing you can control is how you show up to work, how you work, and when you get your chance, what you do with it. So that's what we preach: is control what you can control. And if you can go back to a coach and say, I'm productive and this is what happened, and if you have those facts and it's backed up, then if you decide to do something opposite, right, with your career, you're justified by it. But if you're not taking advantage of your opportunities, you're not showing up on time, you're late, you're not doing you're bad in school, you got bad grades, you're not taking care of the things you can control, then there's not much that you can stand on when you go to advocate for yourself. So that's what we tell them, is like, make sure that you're taking care of your business. So when you need to go have that conversation, you have legs to stand on.
I like that. I mean, there's no question that controlling what you can is really
Right.
the only thing you can focus on.
Right.
But I'm going to give you another idea. That is the leave no doubt principle. It's
Yeah.
like I tell guys all the time, can you have a higher standard than your coach? So
Yeah.
what typically happens in a relationship between a player and a coach is he's trying to please the coach. He's trying to do what the coach wants him to do. He's trying to execute it. He's trying to, game operations, as a quarterback, you're trying to do everything the way the coach wants. What if your standard is higher than your coach's?
Mm.
Now your perspective is, you know what? I coach is like, hey, great job. And then your
Right.
mind, you're like, yeah, but I didn't. Hey, when I snapped the ball, the motion man was not where he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
He couldn't make the block. He couldn't get into the route like he
Yeah.
should have. Still got a first down.
Right.
Still was a successful play, but I can get better at it because my standard is better. And so what I told my son was, your performance was not, leave no doubt, standard.
Mm.
Hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
But if you would have left no doubt, you would have been QB1.
Right.
I don't care about the politics.
Right. Well, it's just what you tell people all the time. It's like when you're coaching as a coach, the one thing you say in a staff meeting is like, hey, we can't allow our guys to put it in the ref's hands, right? Because there's always that, the refs did this, the refs did that. We can't allow that, right? It's the same thing as leave no doubt, is we can't allow that doubt or that person to be able to make that judgment call if we didn't do what we were supposed to do, or if we're making the mistakes. We can't leave it in their hands, right? So like same principles, like, leave no doubt. Like when you have those opportunities, you have to shine and you have to execute, right? Execution is everything, right? And again, young players don't get the execution. Is that, hey, I made the play. Yeah, but you made the play by going the wrong way or taking the wrong step, or you got lucky by making that play. You didn't make the play because you executed the way we taught you or the way you're supposed to get it done. So I think that's hard for a lot of kids to do. It's like, well, man, I made the play. Like I don't know what the deal is. Like, yeah, but you got out of your gap, or you went the wrong way and you just got lucky and you fell into the play. There's a difference between making the play by doing it the right way and doing it the way you're coached, and falling into something and it happening to work out. So it's those little devils in the details things, right? That you try to tell kids all the time. It's like, hey, pay attention to the small things, because that's what coaches pay attention to. They want to know if you're doing all the little things right. Because if you're consistent with the little things, then you'll be better. I can trust you, right? If you're doing all the little things right. But if you're a guy that's not doing the little things right, then I'm going to have a problem at the end of the day if I can really trust you or leave you out there. Because if you're consistently not doing the little things right and you're consistently doing something wrong, but yeah, you might make plays or make the big splash moments. But what happens if you break down at the wrong time that cost us at a crucial point in the game because you're making the same mistake over and over again and we told you it was going to happen? it's a tough situation, but like you say, like none of this is fair. And I think that's the great thing about sports is that when you're done playing and you look back on your experiences, you can either use it as a crutch or you can use it as fuel in the next part of your life to say, man, I is there anything similar that I went through, right, that can help me now? That can help my mindset of, what I need to do different or what I need to keep doing. And I think that's the wonderful thing about sports is it does teach you, it does prepare you for the next chapter.
Steve, you said two awesome things there. One is that the trust issue. In
Right,
the NFL, coaches will not play a player they can't trust.
right.
And the only time that player will ever get on the field is if they have nobody else,
Yeah, last
right?
resort. Yeah,
And in college, it's the same way.
yeah.
Because in college, these coaches now are making so much money. They
Mhm,
don't want to get fired. They don't want to
mhm.
go home and tell Mama Bear, hey, we got to change schools and sell the house and move to a different city.
Yeah,
So if they can't trust a kid, they won't play him, even if he's better,
right.
even if he has more flash plays than the other kid. So I think the thing that players have to understand is coaches have a trust meter that they don't even know they have.
Yeah.
But it's like they just don't feel good about this kid. He's not ready yet. He needs some
Mm,
more seasoning, or they got to see him more in practice. He's got to
yeah,
be more consistent. So if you're not being trusted by your coach, that's a wake up call to make sure you're on your P's and Q's because that coach doesn't even want to play you. And if the season's over, he's trying to recruit somebody to take your place.
right. And I think players need to figure out, they need to understand too that the trust is not just, you're not building trust just on the field, right? It's your habits in the locker room, it's your habits outside of the facility, it's your habits in the classroom that plays all into that trust factor. Like what type of person is he? Right? Like what type of person is she? Like can I trust them? Like if I'm not around, can I trust them to do the right thing? Are they making the right decisions on a consistent basis? Like everybody messes up. But if you're consistently messing up, what does that say about you, right? Like so and then is that going to carry into a game when I need you? So trust isn't just, between the lines. It's what's happening outside the lines in the locker room and in the community and when you're walking around the facility. Like what type of person is, how are they treating people? How are you treating people when you're not, somebody's not looking at you to treat people well? Like what are you doing? Like what type of kid are you?
One of the best ways for coaches to find that out, talk to your teammates
Yeah.
because teammates don't lie. They ain't going
No.
to cover up for a guy. They don't want to be playing next to somebody that's going to make them look bad. So if you're an offensive lineman, you're an offensive tackle, and you're asking, hey, what do you think of this young guard? You don't want to play by him because you know he's just going to make you look bad. You're going to say, Coach, I don't think he's ready yet. But
Yeah.
if you think he's ready, we're good. But I don't think he's ready. Well, that's all the coach needed to hear.
Yeah. Right.
The other thing you talked about was the level of execution. The players don't typically understand the level of execution because when they make the play, they look at results and they don't look at the process. And what the coaches are looking at is both. They're looking at
Mm.
the process and the results.
Yeah.
And every now and then there's a guy, and you've had some at Nebraska when you played there, that they just made plays, even though, coaches were pulling out their hair because,
Yeah.
man, we don't know if he's even focused on this play. We
Right.
don't know if he's thinking about football on this play,
Right.
but that turkey was so good, he made the play.
Right.
So here's where this execution game comes in. Every time a player steps on the field, he finds himself in one of three areas. He's either way better than the guy that's across the line, he's similar to, or he's deficient. The guy
Mm.
across the line is a lot better than him.
Yeah.
And so what happens is in little boy football, little youth sports, period. Hey, if you're the best athlete, you can get away with having poor
Mm.
technique, poor process.
Right.
But the higher you go, you can't get away anymore. So
Mm-mm.
the question is, in the NFL, let's say, or in college, Power Five, there's going to be some days. Let's say you're coaching and you got a kid that you're coaching. He's not as good as the guy on the other side.
Yeah.
How can he get him? Execution, technique,
Yeah.
the process. and hoping that the other guy loses his focus and he's coasting. And that's how, because at the end of the day, we wouldn't even have to play games.
Yeah.
If we just looked at the Vegas line and go, oh yeah, Nebraska's going to go 7-4 this year, 7-5.
Right. Right.
We don't have to play the games.
No.
Of course we have to play the games.
Yeah.
Because you don't win them sometimes when you should, and sometimes you win them when you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that also trickles down to the field in the sense of man v man, player versus player. So as a cornerstone of your performance, you should be focusing on execution, because it's going to be really, really beneficial when the other guy across the line is a little bit faster, a little bit stronger, a little bit quicker.
And that's
Thoughts
what
on
that for us at the academy, we're built. Our foundation is built on that, your individual performance, because we're not dealing with team aspect, right? That's the fun part of doing what we do, is we don't have to worry about the whole team. We're taking a kid in a case-by-case basis and finding out what he or she needs to become the best player so they can win when it comes that time. If that person across from you is more talented, and that's going to happen a lot. Like, you're always going to run up against somebody that's more talented than you. But if I execute at a high level and that person with talent doesn't, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to win that battle. If we're similar athletes, right? Now, there's just sometimes you just got a kid that's like, it don't matter what you do, like you're not winning that, right? There's a lot of battles that you're going to find that are like that too. But when you get those battles where, hey, I can get this person, like, that's when it comes down to your process, what you've done, what you've learned, how your technique is. That's how you can win. And so that's the fun part for us, is that we see that a lot. Like, and even like when we go to 7-on-7 tournaments, a lot of times we're not taking the most talented team, but our teams are disciplined. They know where they're supposed to be. They're smart because we've taught them the game and we've taught them what to look at. So we win a lot at all of our levels. Even our development teams win a lot because they're taught how to win and the why to win, right? We're just not saying, hey, we're going to throw the best 7 kids out there as athletes and hope it works. Like, it's not really what we do. We find the kids that have talent, and we try to raise that talent level with the knowledge of the game. And that just brings everybody up.
No doubt. Well, another concept that has really come to the forefront the last few years is the notion of basically creating a performance bubble that you perform in. It's like when you go to a 7-on-7 tournament, you have your boys, you have your team, like, do whatever they need to do to show up wherever you're going with their hard work, their preparation, the game plan, their health. They're rested. They're got a lot of nutrition, have been eating right, and everything that doesn't serve them. Like, hey, trying to impress some college coach. Hey, somebody on a different team is doubting that I'm good. My coach last year told me I probably shouldn't come to your 7-on-7 because I wouldn't make it. Or my dad that said something 10 years ago that I haven't forgotten, but it shows up in those moments. It's just basically creating this like safe harbor where you can go be in the flow, because everything that's for you is with you, and everything that's not, leave it behind.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I mean, it's important, especially today with so many distractions and the kids having so much at their hands, just like so much in front of them and so many different things they can get into, of having that mental mindset of coming in of like, okay, am I focused on the job at hand today, right? Like, how do you get kids mentally prepared to get ready to compete and to cut out all the distractions, right? And to cut out all the distractions, and what are they doing leading up to when they have to compete? That's one thing I'm working with my son right now is like, hey, it's the game is Friday. You can't tell me Thursday night that you need something. You need to start thinking about what you need Monday, right? And working every day and making sure Tuesday I already have that. I'm ready to go. So when it gets to Friday, you're not thinking about, oh man, I forgot this or I forgot that. Like, you're starting to get mentally prepared before you get there. And I think that mental preparation part of it is probably the biggest factor, right? For younger kids is starting now to mentally dial in to what I have to do. But it takes, it takes also like that. It takes of being in a group of kids that are like that because the peer side of it is a lot to do with that. Now, in the school that we chose for my son, the reason why we chose that school is because how they prepare during the week. They don't start on Thursday of getting mentally ready for the game. They're doing things Monday to get mentally prepared and Tuesday. Because let's face it, high school football a lot of times is just, if you got 10 guys that are good, you're going to win. But we weren't looking for just that. I can teach my son football. What I need you to teach him is how to get prepared, right? Is what it's like to be on a team that they have expectations to be mentally prepared and to get ready for the game on Friday. And that's why we chose the school that he's at, because what they do is as close to a college as there is that I've seen out there from a high school in our area, of how they get kids prepared, what they're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the process to get kids ready. Like you said, from everything from nutrition to what they're doing in the weight room, what they're wearing, what they're reading, what they're watching. They're doing it from all levels. They're touching every aspect. So it's so big. And when you see kids that don't have it and don't make it, you're like, oh man, if that kid just could have focused, right? Like, if he just could have mentally prepared himself even a day earlier than what they needed to do. A lot of kids are just not. They're just aloof. Like even game times, like, what are you thinking about? Like, where's your mind at? And you see sometimes those most talented kids are a lot like that because, like you said, when they're younger, they got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
As the older they got, and kids that care a little bit more, maybe not as talented as him, like, why is this kid beating you now? Because he's prepared and you're not. You have more talent, but he's prepared and you're not.
No doubt.
That's why you're losing.
Well, something else that I've learned is that, I'm sure you did this when you were playing. I'm sure you teach it. It's the visualization part.
Yeah.
And honestly, players should visualize every situation. And when they show up on Friday night for a game, and let's say they're doing warm-ups and they got the fresh smell, the fresh, grass, the smell of fresh cut grass.
Yeah.
And they got the fall, air, just you can smell football.
Right. That feeling.
They've got the confidence that they've already won the game.
Yeah.
Because they've already won the game in their mind before they've even played the game because they're so prepared.
Right.
So it's the idea that sometimes you can complete the pass before you throw it.
You've seen yourself do it.
Yeah, you've seen yourself do it.
You've seen yourself.
And it doesn't matter where the corner's at.
Right.
If he's undercutting him, you threw it high. If he's behind him, you threw him open. I mean, doesn't matter what it is. You're prepared for whatever you're going to see. And all that happens in a nanosecond when you're playing quarterback.
Right. And I think for my son, he's so young and he's so talented, is that he's starting to figure those things out now. It's like, hey, if I just take a little bit of time just to mentally prepare, like, how much better do I play? And it's kind of interesting just to watch him kind of go through that process of figuring out. Like last week, he finally, as a freshman playing varsity, he's only playing like the backup, like the minutes when their team's up, right? He's not playing very meaningful minutes in the game, but he's getting in the game. But last week, I actually saw him before the game, take mental reps. During the game, I saw him go off to the side and get away from his friends and, get the signal from the coaches and watch the play. And so that's what I wanted to see, that maturity from him, is like, hey, are you going to do those things when you're on the sideline? You're still learning. You're still playing the game. You're still able to play the game. Like, get the signal. Now, on the side, everything's called in from the sideline. Everything's fast paced. So you can watch the guys calling in the play, get the play, know what's going on, and you can stand back and watch the quarterback and stand at his level and see what he's seeing and understand what's happening in the game. So it's going to be fun to see how that grows and that matures.
Well, two things. One is There was this prisoner of war that was a golfer. He was a 20 plus handicapper, and he was a prisoner of war for like a couple of years. And for his sanity to make it through, he would play golf at one of the golf courses he knew. And he would feel the air on his cheek. He would smell the grass. He would, everything about playing golf, he visualized it. And when he got out, he was a scratch golfer.
Wow.
He never took one swing when he was a prisoner of war.
Wow.
So the power of the mind.
Yeah.
So the thing that your son needs to understand is that when he's in a playoff game, and they don't want him to play. He's the freshman. He's the backup.
Right.
They want him to play because they want to win and they want to be so far ahead that they can put him in. But
Right.
they don't want to play him. But he could actually gain game experience by getting the play call, understanding what's going to happen, understand what his reads are, and then see what the starter does, see how it worked or didn't work, and then kind of process, okay, I would have done exactly what he did.
Right.
Or, man, he threw a pick. I wouldn't have thrown that. I would have thrown it over here. And that way, when the night's over and the game's over, whether your son steps across the line onto the field or not, he got the benefit of playing that game.
Yeah, he played. He still played the game. And that again is like when we go back to earlier in the conversation of, the benefit of having a parent that has seen all of it from a high level or been associated with it. That's the benefit he gets, right? Is that there's not a lot of kids that have a knowledge base that he can pull from, right? That of the other coaches, of everything else. And that mental side of it, he probably gets tired of, and all of our kids probably get tired of us talking about the mental side of things and preparing the right way and visualizing yourself do things. Because it's something we all talk about a lot. Is, it's like, what were you doing on the sideline? Like you weren't in the game, but you didn't get the defensive call. Like when we're in practice, we make sure that everybody's getting the defensive call. Everybody knows the offensive play so they can watch, because getting those mental reps is so important.
In the NFL, sometimes that's all you get.
Right.
A lot of times QB2 gets 0 reps. Maybe on Wednesday gets 2 or 3 reps during team period. The rest of the week, they don't take any reps. But if the QB1 goes down, what's the fans expecting?
Right. Well, I mean, I think people should look at Josh Dobbs, right? Like how amazing is that to be traded on a Tuesday to be playing on a Sunday with guys you don't even know, and to put up 35 points or 28 to 35 points, win the game. And like, you may know bits and pieces of the offense, but you don't know all the terminology. You don't know the coaches. Like, how mentally prepared is that guy? Like how dialed in is he that he can go in and execute an offense that he's really just being handed to from a new staff, right? So, and then to do it again the next week. So that I love that part of it, and I love watching those type of stories because it's the guy that's not the starter or the star or everybody they're talking about. It's the guy that's, he was at another team playing for somebody else last week, and then he gets traded on a Tuesday, and he's starting for this other team and playing phenomenal. So kids need to pay attention to those stories more than they pay attention to the stories of the guys that's been the starter and supposed to be the guy. Like, because that's, like you talked about, that's not normal. The normal is the Dobbs. Like, are you a guy that's not getting an opportunity that maybe could be out of the league, right? But when you get your chance, what'd you do with it? And then, I think that's a phenomenal story right now.
It is. 90% of guys in that same situation would have failed. And they would have had an excuse, legitimate reason. Fans would have given them a pass. Coaches would have given them a pass. And it's like week 2, hey, still learning the ropes. And then week 3, somebody else is playing quarterback.
Right.
Because he wasn't getting it done.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things that I think Josh has, and I don't know Josh personally. One is I break up belief and confidence into 2 parts.
Mm-hmm.
Belief is about who you are as a man, as a person. And confidence is about your skill set. It's about what you do.
Yeah.
So to really do what Josh has done with Minnesota, he's had to have a tremendous amount of belief in who he is.
Mm.
and trusted that the confidence in his skills is going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
Okay. But he had to believe. And then the
Yeah.
second component that he has is he has an identity separate from football.
Yeah.
So in our country and in sports, it's all about what do you do and what position you play.
Mm.
It's never about who you are.
Mm.
If we focused on developing the person and who they are, they can play any position.
Right.
Or the position they play, they could play it better.
Mm.
And so one of the things I've done with my boys, probably for the last 7-8 years, is told them football is what you do. Football is what you like to do,
Not
but
who you are.
football is not who you are.
Yeah.
And the world will tell your son football is who he is.
Yeah. They will definitely
Okay.
do that.
And the girls will, his friends will, coaches just, hey man, you're our quarterback.
Right.
And then what happens to a lot of guys is they start feeling like they're going through an identity crisis because they don't know who they are
Yeah.
without football. And
Well, see it all. I know you've seen it a million times, right? And
yeah,
we see it all the time, and it's funny because who we are now, we're not just helping kids, right? We've been fortunate enough to help a lot of former players find out who they are
yeah,
because they've came and helped, and then they figured out through the process of them helping and serving somebody else who they are, what they like, or being around guys that have been through, I'm no longer a player, but I still got to figure out life, right? I still got to manage and navigate what it means not to be a football player. And so that's been the interesting thing for me that I think was not expected as much is what we've been able to do to help former players find who they are. And it happens every year. We're going through it right now with a group of guys that are finishing football and they don't have a clue of what they're going to do next. And so that's been the fun part is being able to help that process, right? Not just the kids. It's like that whole thing of, me helping you helps me, right? And
no question.
that's what we've seen.
Well, one of the things that happens is a majority of the guys that leave the league, that get cut, get terminated, get waived, they had to be 10 toes down on football or they wouldn't have made it.
Right.
But when they get ushered out the door and the GM says, hey, thanks, but, we had a numbers thing this year and we just can't keep another D tackle or O lineman or whatever it might be. They go through about 2 years, sometimes 3 years of figuring out who they are.
Mm-hmm.
College guys do the same thing when they don't have an opportunity to play in the pros. High school guys sometimes go through that because they just are not blessed with the athleticism and the body type to play college football, or they can't get money to play football, and so they don't play football. But then they still want to play football,
Right.
and they got this like love-hate. And honestly, I'm guessing this might have happened to you.
Yeah.
It happens to most guys. You hate football for a minute.
Oh, I didn't watch for at least. I didn't really watch football or want to be a part of it for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
It's your way of dealing with it because it's like if we took a straw poll of all the guys that been out of the league for a couple of years, most of them are still not watching football.
Yeah.
Because they hate it. They hate the fact that some dude that didn't get drafted, they were drafted, some dude that didn't get drafted is still playing.
Right.
Somebody they room with at training camp or at the combine or at an all-star game is still playing.
Right.
And they're like, man, I'm better than him.
Right.
And he's still playing. So then they go through this whole category of things. Oh, I'm mad at my agent, which I understand that. You're mad at your coaches. You're mad at your parents. You're mad at God. You bring everybody in there because It's like, doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's tough to deal with, but it's part of life, right? And it like I said earlier, you can use it as a crutch or you can use it as fuel, right? Like at the end of the day, the world's not stopping because you're not happy, right? The world's not going to stop and say, wait, we got to wait and let him catch up. Like that doesn't happen. So, and I see guys now to this day that are like 20 years later still trying to wait for the world to let them catch up. It's like the world's not stopping for you. Like it's not. You've got to catch up. Like you've got to catch up. You've got to stop living there. Like that's over. That's done. Like you've got to stop living there. You've got to get on to the next thing and figuring out what you're good at.
Well, one thing that I've tried to do with my clients when I know they're in one of those situations where they're making that transition is ask them what they're passionate about and what they're good at. And the intersection of what you're passionate about and what you're good at is a good place to start. It may not be where you're finishing, but it's like do something you like and do
Yeah.
something you're good, because football has a short shelf life. You know, I mean, Tom Brady kind of threw everything, broke all the records, but for
Right.
most guys, 30 and you're still playing football is old.
Yeah. Unheard of a lot of times.
Yeah.
Unheard of. You're done by that time.
All right, Steve, let's shift gears here for a second. I got to get your professional opinion about the Huskers.
Oh yeah.
The 2023. Talk to me about the 2023 Huskers. We're 5-5. Got to win a game against Wisconsin or Iowa to
Oh
go to
man.
the bowl game. What the heck's going on?
I mean, it's the obvious thing, right? Like the quarterback position. Like it's we've both got kids that are quarterbacks, and people don't understand that aren't in it how important that position is. And it's not just having a star at the position, but it's somebody that can manage the game. And honestly, if they were just more careful with the football, right? At that position, and primarily at that position, if they were just more careful with the football,
They might have 3 more dubs.
we might not even be worried about if we're going to make a bowl game, but it's which one we're going to.
Right.
Right now, it's tough because like Heinrich is a kid that came through our program. He's a great kid. He works hard. He's big, strong, athletic. But he was never an elite passer, right? So it's not that's not who he is. Like he's a dual threat guy, right? Like he needs to run the football to help him throw the football, right? He needs that. So, but just taking care of the ball has been the biggest things. And Sims it's been hard to watch because I kind of feel bad for the kid because when it happens, you're like, oh man, like he's not trying to,
No.
right? It's like
No.
he's not trying to, but it goes back to what you're saying is we've been around the game long enough to know like, man, it's going to be really hard for that kid to get a shot at a whole lot of places after this or anywhere else or getting back on the field because it might be over for him. Like, like as far as going on and playing at the next level, like something drastically has to change because it's tough. That's tough to see when you're watching somebody like when you're watching it be over, right? Like you said, a lot of guys don't know it's over.
Yeah. Some you do.
Some you're watching, you're like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
Like it's over. Like it's like, and that's hard. That's tough to watch. So I don't know. I mean, the defense played really well. Like I'm sure, I'm sure JoJo would have loved to play for that defense. Like they're getting after it. Like they are getting after it. What I've liked the last couple of weeks is now they've started in the game to create some turnovers. And earlier on, when they were learning the defense, you can kind of just tell that they were just, I need to be in the right place. Like I'll worry about stripping the ball later. I need to be here and just make the tackle. But now they're making the tackle, and you see guys going for the ball. So that's where like, hey, there's coaching being done there. They're developing those guys the right way because that has changed. I watched the defense. I'm a defensive player, so I've watched that. Like beginning of the year, I said if they start creating turnovers, then you can say they're a good defense. They're a really good defense, and they've started to do that. And they've had that mindset of take the ball back, not just we're going to make the play, but when we make the play, let's take the ball away too now. So that's been fun to watch. But you feel bad for the team as a whole because turnovers have killed everything, and now you're in this position where you've got to go to Camp Randall and win a game, and then you got to play Iowa, whose defense is Now you talk about a team that should be more upset than anybody in the country with
Oh
that
yeah,
defense. If they could score 10 points a game, they'd be a top 5 team. But so it's uh it's gonna be interesting to watch these last 2 weeks. But I will say this: I do like those guys. I do like Rule. I do like Coach White, Foley, the guy that recruits the area here. Like they are doing the right things. And they're doing things that haven't been done here in a long time. Like they are getting involved in the community. They're talking to the right people. Um, like I know, there's people who want to be involved with the program that shouldn't be involved, and there's people that should be involved and are just kind of sitting back and watching and seeing what the guys are going to do. But they're navigating that in the right way. I'll say that.
that's awesome. So your prediction for the Iowa game, like 3-2 or 3-3? What do you
Man,
think?
if we score 6 points, we should get the win. We should get the win because they can't score at all. But we're not too much better on the offensive side of the ball right now. So I'm not looking for the crazy thing. It'll probably be like a 38-32 game or something like that. They'll just everybody will have a scoring explosion that game. But I'm not. That's probably not going to happen. Let's be honest. It's probably going to be like 10-6.
Coach Rule and his staff, how many kids from Omaha or from the state are penciled in to head over to Lincoln in 2024 and in 2025? What's it looking like? Is the
I think
talent going to Nebraska? Are they leaving?
right now, I think he has every kid that has a Power Five offer is besides one. There's an offensive lineman that decommitted from Illinois a few weeks ago. That is in the 2024 class. I think every other kid is coming to Lincoln. I can't think of one right now that's got a Nebraska offer and maybe another offer that took the other offer besides that one kid. I can't think of one. Everybody else is committed to come to Nebraska. And 2025 is about the same way right now. There's a couple kids that are not committed, but they have some. I think they're waiting to see what's going to happen with the offense because they're offensive players. There's a tight end, Chase Lofton, that's really good, really talented. He's one of our kids. And I think they're kind of waiting to see what are they going to do with the tight end position. Last year, they missed out on a kid, Ben Bramer, that's at Iowa State that's killing it at tight end. You saw him actually when we came to Denver and played in that tournament. He was the big 6'5" kid I told you about.
Oh yeah,
He's killing it, and we wish we had him. And then they missed out on Zane Flores, that went to Oklahoma State last year. But this year, everybody that should be going there is coming there.
that's awesome. All right, Steve. What did I not ask you that you would like to share?
Oh man, just there's not much other than the dream side of things, like doing what we do in the community for the kids that don't have a lot. We get a lot of love for the football side of stuff because it's high profile, right? We've got so many kids that are going on and doing big things on the football field. But what we do in the community with kids that don't they're not athletes, they're not stars and by any measure. But that to us is really what this is about. And we kind of use the football side of things to really help those kids because it helps people want to be around us and know what we're doing. And it gets people talking about, the organization. But at the end of the day, our organization is built for those kids. For those kids that aren't going to that aren't going to go on and play on Sundays or play Division I football or basketball. It's the kids that just need somebody to believe in them that they can graduate high school, that they can stay out of trouble and stay out of jail, that they can go on and live productive lives as barbers or mechanics or as doctors, as lawyers. Um, that's who we are, right? Sports has made us, and given us a platform to be able to help the kids and the people that need the help the most. And a lot of times, like athletes, we're spoiled, right? Like we're very spoiled. Like we get things, we don't have to pay for things. We get into doors, and there's people that need it, that have to pay double and triple for it, and we're giving it given to us, and we don't even need it. So we've done everything we can right now for those people, and that's what we want people. That's what we want people to know, is that, you know, we love the attention we get from the sports side of things, but you know what this is really about is helping those that need it the most.
Okay, along those lines, anybody out there that would like to support your program, donate to your program, learn more about your program, where can they find you?
JoinDream.org is the organization. So Dream is our umbrella. Warren Academy's under that umbrella. So there's two different websites, but they all link back to each other. But Dream is the umbrella. So that's where they can go. JoinDream.org. Go online, read about what we're doing, and support us, because, you know, without that help, we're not doing any of this right now without the community helping us and backing us.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve Warren, for being on Pro Mindset today. It's always nice to catch up. Hang tight just for a second.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast, and I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.